I discovered my fiancée's secret escape fund, so I walked away and never looked back. I'm 34, a data analyst with a stable career and a life built on commitment. My father had a saying that always stuck with me. A relationship without trust is like a house built on sand. I never knew how true that was until everything in my life, everything I thought I was building, came down in pieces. It started on a Saturday afternoon. The sun streamed through the living room window, casting a glow on the stack of receipts, bank statements, and financial records laid out in front of me. My fiancée and I were deep into wedding planning, and we had agreed to go over our finances in preparation for merging them after the wedding. I was checking through some joint expenses when I noticed a letter from a bank I didn't recognize. The logo at the top was unfamiliar, and my eyes narrowed as I read the account statement. It was in her name and carried a significant balance. Confusion morphed into disbelief when I found more. Printed email exchanges with her lawyer, the phrases asset protection and contingency fund leapt off the page. A chill settled over me as I pieced it together. This wasn't just a backup savings account. This was a calculated safety net built to nurture for a future that did not involve me. The front door opened, and there she was carrying bags of groceries. Her hair swept back into a loose ponytail. She glanced at me, smiling, but her expression shifted when she saw the papers in my hand. "Hey, what's going on?" she asked, the tone too casual for us. "Want to explain this?" I held up the letter. Her eyes dropped to the paper, and for a second, I caught the flicker of panic. She put the bags down, the rustle of plastic, the only sound between us. "It's an account I started a while back," she said, straightening. "Just in case, for emergencies." "Emergencies?" I repeated, not buying it. Since when do emergencies come with legal consultations and labeled plans for the future without me? Her jaw tightened. "You're reading into this the wrong way." "Am I?" I tossed a stack of emails and statements onto the coffee table because it sure as hell looks like you've been planning an escape route while we were talking wedding venues. She crossed her arms, eyes shifting as if searching for the right words. "Do you know how many women I know who've ended up blindsided and screwed over after a divorce? They trusted everything to their husbands and then got left with nothing." I stared at her, the woman I'd imagined growing old with, now a stranger. "And so what? You decided that was going to happen here before we even got started. You decided I was someone you couldn't trust. It's not about you." She snapped a defensive edge in her voice. "It's about being smart. It's about protecting myself. I didn't want to end up like Lisa or my mom's friends who—" "Then why not tell me?" I interrupted. "Why keep it a secret? Why involve your parents in it and not talk to the one person it affects the most, me?" Her silence told me everything I needed to know. The weight of her parents' influence, their whispered fears, and cautionary tales had done more than just worry her. It had set her on this path where trust was secondary, where deceit was justified. I took a step back, feeling the distance between us grow by miles. "I can't do this," I said quietly, turning away from the look on her face, a mix of anger and something like regret. "I need time to think." I crashed at my friend Matt's place that night. We'd been through thick and thin since college, and his garage had seen more late-night conversations and existential crises than I could count. He handed me a beer, eyes narrowing as I recounted the whole mess. "Man, that's a punch to the gut," he said. "So, she's been planning for a future where you're not even in the picture?" "Pretty much," I said, staring at the oil streak rag on the workbench. Her parents weren't on it, too. Can you believe that? People who I thought cared about us, about me, backing her on this. Matt shook his head, muttering a curse. "You need answers, bro. You can't just let this sit." I took his advice. The next evening, I called her parents and asked to come over. They lived close, in a cozy suburban home where I'd spent countless Sunday dinners. Her mother answered the door, eyes avoiding mine, while her father stood stiffly in the hallway. "What's this about?" her father asked, the question hanging heavy with pretended ignorance. "I know about the account," I said, cutting through any pretense. I laid the documents on the coffee table, watching her mother's hands twitch, fingers fidgeting with the hem of her shirt. Her father's face tightened, the lines around his mouth deepening. She was just being careful, he said, like that explained everything. Careful? I scoffed. You call plotting behind my back careful? What happened to trust? To honesty? You've both smiled at me, welcomed me into your home, all while knowing she was setting up a plan B. Her mother's eyes glistened with tears, guilt finally showing itself. We didn't mean for it to come to this, she whispered. After what happened to Lisa, we thought it was best. What happened to Lisa has nothing to do with me. I shot back. I'm not her ex, and she's not Lisa. This is about you filling her head with fears and doubts until she couldn't trust the man she's about to marry. Her father cleared his throat, looking away. The room was silent except for the ticking of the old wall clock, each second grinding into my patience. If trust means that little to you all, then there's nothing left to talk about. Days stretched into a week. She called, texted, tried to see me, but I couldn't bring myself to face her. I'd hear from friends who got wind of it through the twisted grapevine of social media and mutual connections. The version she'd spread painted me as an overreacting, paranoid fiancé who'd stormed out over a simple precaution. Dude, did you really break things off over having a savings account? One friend texted. That's insane. You guys were solid. I forwarded them screenshots of the documents, the lawyer emails. The account balance that wasn't just a rainy day fund, but a whole fortress built on mistrust. A slow, painful shift began as the truth made its rounds. Tom, one of my oldest friends, called me. Man, I had no idea. She told us it was nothing serious, just you freaking out. I'm sorry I didn't reach out sooner. Rachel, who'd been friends with both of us, texted. I'm here if you need to talk. I should have known there was more to this. Matt was right. Getting answers helped. The silence from the people who turned on me initially was louder than anything they could have said. After a week of silence, she asked to meet. A part of me resisted, but curiosity and the need for closure won out. We met at a cafe we used to go to after long work days, where the smell of roasted beans and vanilla felt like nostalgia mixed with something bittersweet. She sat across from me, eyes tired, the weight of it all finally visible. I'm sorry, she said, voice hoarse. I never meant to hurt you. I was scared. Scared of what? I said, leaning forward. Of me? Of us? Or was it easier to believe that I'd end up like Lisa's ex and leave you with nothing? Tears filled her eyes, spilling over. I didn't know how to talk about it. I thought if I told you, you'd think I didn't trust you. You're right. I would have, but at least it would have been honest. I said, the anger's still there, but dimmer now. Instead, you let it turn into this lie, and you involve your parents, the people I trusted, to help you hide it. I know, she whispered, voice breaking. It was stupid. I was stupid. I thought I was protecting us both. No, I said. Standing up, you were protecting yourself. And that's not the foundation I can build a marriage on. Her hand reached out, fingers hovering just short of mine. Please, we can fix this. But I shook my head, the last piece of trust crumbling away. This is goodbye. I walked out into the cool evening, the weight of finality settling in. The fallout was messy. Some friends stayed, some drifted. Her parents left voicemails, alternating between apologetic and defensive. We did what we thought was right. Her father's voice would say, I didn't call back. The wedding date came and went, marked only by a sense of quiet resolve. It was no longer a day of mourning what could have been, but a reminder of what wasn't there, trust. I carried on, focused on my work, took up hiking to clear my mind, and learned to play guitar. Life slowly found a new rhythm, one where I knew I'd love again, but with eyes wide open. Months later, I heard she moved away, starting fresh in a new city where nobody knew the story. I felt a fleeting moment of sympathy for her, for the consequences of her choices and the weight of guilt she'd likely carry. But it was just a moment. I couldn't let myself dwell on it. I'd spent enough time being haunted by what-ifs and regrets. There was no grand revelation or sudden peace that washed over me. Just a slow, steady realization that I had dodged a life built on uncertainty. The experience had hardened me, but also taught me to be more discerning. I started valuing open conversations and honesty above everything else. Over time, I began to date again, cautiously at first. Every conversation carried echoes of the past. The unspoken question of whether this new person was hiding a safety net, harboring doubts they'd never voice. But I also realized I couldn't live in suspicion forever. I learned to trust, but it was earned now, not given. People say time heals all wounds, but it's more like time teaches you how to carry them. I carried this one as a reminder that love without trust is just another word for disaster. I'd grown wiser, perhaps a little cynical, but not broken. And as the months turned into a year, I found myself more at peace, content with who I'd become, and knowing that next time, I'd see the sign sooner. I knew now that protecting yourself isn't wrong, but honesty must walk beside it. Because trust, once fractured, leaves cracks that can't always be mended. And that knowledge, painful as it was to earn, was a foundation for the rest of my life. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them, so please leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this one.